Welcome to TRLEvision, a show chronicling my ongoing journey through the very best and most unique custom Tomb Raider levels made using the Tomb Raider level editor. Now, I'm fairly new to this side of the community, and it wasn't until I started making my retrospectives and getting to know you lot better that I was actually made aware of these awesome fan-made levels made by some really dedicated and talented individuals. I knew that I wanted to start my journey off through this world strong, so I put it to my Warr Manor Discord community to send me recommendations for mods that they felt were really outstanding. And after a short scan through them all, I saw one called Mists of Avalon by a user called Titak. Then after playing through it over on my Twitch channel, I was so impressed by it that I just knew that I had to do this one first. Mists of Avalon: The First Clues is the first episode of an ongoing story that seems to take place from within the Legend or LoL continuity. It takes place in a single geographical location, which is Lara's mansion in England, and eventually expands to have you visit the caverns below Croft Manor's crypt, similar to how you do the same thing in Underworld. Now, it has to be said that from a visual standpoint that this is an incredibly well polished and refined looking map. Every texture is brimming with lots of intricate detail that's easy to take in without it ever looking overly complicated or too busy. The 3D modeling work that's been put into making all of these custom objects is also spectacular, and they all have a really professional level of quality to them that helps them fit their surroundings perfectly. The color palette for this mod helps in that regard too, with lots of bright and contrasting colors to help clearly visually identify areas and give them character. This certainly holds true for a majority of the level's runtime, as there are a lot of areas in this adventure that are so visually striking that it's easy to forget that this was all built on a variant of the Tomb Raider 4 engine. The start of the mod has you training in the Croft Manor gymnasium during a typical English rainy day. Winston has hidden various keys to different parts of the mansion in various locations and set up some puzzles for Lara to solve at her behest. So you're going to be spending a lot of time here, and thankfully navigating around the manor, whilst not being the same layout that you're likely used to, is a painless task. I quite liked the inclusion of the garden house and kitchen in this mod, and I distinctly remembered making a joke on my stream about using the blender to solve a puzzle, then was left completely speechless when that turned out to be true. It's impressive just how accurately Titak has been able to recreate a majority of the mansion from that era, whilst also throwing in new rooms to give it a fresh but familiar feel without having anything stand out like a sore thumb. So what is this mod all about? Well, the story this mod tries to tell is one that combines the mythologies of Avalon and Atlantis, with Lara travelling into the catacombs beneath Croft Manor to find a map detailing the location of Avalon. There's a cast of familiar characters who have all been given full voiceovers, and a bunch of flavour text sprinkled throughout the mod to help flesh things out a bit. Lara's voice is provided by community darling and unofficial voice of Lara herself, Jennifer Millward, who does a really fantastic job here. Zip, Alistair, and Winston have also had voiceover work done too, but it's kind of obvious that the people behind their voices are other members of the Tomb Raider community lending a hand to Titak, and not anyone well versed in the world of voiceover work, which is to be expected with a project like this, but is a little bit distracting.
Good afternoon, Winston. I take it you won't tell me where you hid the crypt key today?
My lips are sealed on that subject.
Winston sounds like he's 16 and trying to buy alcohol with a fake ID. A lot of the music is actually repurposed from other Tomb Raider games like Anniversary and Legend, and you've got some sound effects and voice clips from those games sprinkled in there too. Not gonna lie, when I first heard Lara screaming after falling into lava, I legit forgot that this was a soundbite from Keeley Hawes and thought that Jen Millward had recorded herself screaming her head off at home. All in all, it's got a really good soundscape to it and is great at keeping you engrossed and immersed in the atmosphere and tone that it's going for. Now, Croft Manor is great and all with its laser traps and its secret passages, but when you set foot in the Croft Manor crypts, that's when this mod really starts to get creative and throw some super interesting stuff at you. For starters, the geometry really starts to open up here, with gigantic cavernous rooms coupled with big grand structures that seem to go on for miles. The level design on show here really does a great job of putting all of your skills to good use in some really clever ways, especially with the various hidden secret items to find that grant you access to other bonus collectibles both in Croft Manor and the crypts, or the Undercroft, if you will. Ha! I get it now! On top of that, there's lots of dank and dark caves to navigate through, which make good use of your flashlight, though at times I found some parts were too dark to appropriately navigate through once the battery on the flashlight died, and the battery takes way too long to recharge. I kinda prefer using flares to the rechargeable flashlight from Legend, as they last longer and can be thrown to other locations, giving them way more utility, but it's cool to see someone being able to successfully recreate it in the classic engine, even if it runs out of juice way too quickly for my taste. Combat in this map is pretty minimal, but that's not to say that there's nothing to fight at all, it's just not the main focus here. Most of the enemies that you fight at the beginning are your standard rats and bats, but as you get further into the crypts you have giant spiders, skelly boys, and even a boss fight to deal with. Though I do have to admit the music for this boss fight makes it sound like you're about to fight it like this. But instead you end up fighting it like this.
Stop it! Cut it out!
But the best part of this map for me by far is when you enter the big church near the end and it goes from being this dilapidated ruin grounded in some level of reality to being a bright and vibrant high fantasy setting with flying skeletons, lava, and floating platforms with pentagrams on them. Holy shit! This room with lava even has you running through a corridor to retrieve a key and escape before you burn alive. And this took me a few tries to get right, but when I finally did, oh boy did it feel satisfying. Stressful, but satisfying. I mentioned earlier about the scream that Lara makes when you fall into the lava, but didn't mention what actually happens when you fall into it. I won't play any clips because I really think it's best experienced firsthand without any prior knowledge, but trust me, you will not be ready for it. Control-wise, it's pretty much the same story as Tomb Raider 4, but they've added some extra moves to Lara's repertoire that do a great job of expanding upon what she can already do, and by extension, what the levels can now offer. Things like being able to stand on horizontal poles to jump off for extra height, or scrambling up ledges from a hanging position, are all welcome additions that feel really natural to use. They even fixed the stupid vertical pole backflip maneuver from Tomb Raider 4 by having her jump forward instead, making the act of dismounting them much less of a gamble. These new moves are all detailed in the PDA that the player can access in the items menu, which is also used to document points of interest or give hints on what to do next. At various points you'll just be walking around and then see a little PDA pop up in the bottom right of the screen, letting you know that something has been added for you to look at. It also archives the main lore of the mod too, so you can reread everything on the go without having to backtrack. And now I have to talk about the technical side of things here, because getting this mod to run properly can be a little bit tricky. For starters, to change the resolution to one that's compatible, you have to create a desktop shortcut and add this line of code to the target box in the properties menu. Then once you've opened the shortcut to access the settings, you have to make sure you put the game into either of these resolutions that are on screen now, and run it in windowed mode for everything to work correctly. And the reason why you need to run it in windowed mode is because running the mod in full screen breaks the PDA screens, meaning that you'll miss all the hints, tutorials, and vital information needed to solve the puzzles. So if you want to use the same settings that I did, then feel free to pause the video here and copy these settings. Though if anyone watching knows how to fix the pause screen so I'm no longer staring into the blank, endless white void of nothingness, then I would be most grateful. All in all, I can highly recommend Mists of Avalon to any Tomb Raider fan looking to scratch that classic itch, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Titak comes up with for part 2 of this story. Hopefully this video has inspired you to give this mod a try for yourself, and if it has, I've left links to the download page in the video description below. And that just about wraps up my first ever episode of TRLEvision, and I'm super excited to continue my journey into the Lara metaverse. So if you know of any other incredible custom levels that you would like me to check out and cover for a video, then be sure to pop me a recommendation down in the comments below or over in the Warr Manor Discord server. Special thanks to all of my super generous Twitch subscribers and Patreon supporters for helping me keep this channel going. And if you ever want to catch me playing some of these maps in their entirety live, then be sure to catch me every Tuesdays and Thursdays over on twitch.tv/SteveOfWarr.